It's the end of the day and I'm just going to go out for a little hike on a public footpath. It's a very old public footpath. It's actually a track that used to service the farms to the actual mill. Now I can actually see the village that sits on top of it from my bedroom window, and incidentally my wife was brought up in that village, and my parents almost bought a house there as well, but yeah, how things work out. But yeah, there's a bit of wind, but you know, and I'm losing light, but you know, that's nothing unusual for me. So I'm gonna have a little walk over to this footpath and see how it's looking. Same lane, hedge full of primrose, yellow primroses, and on this side blue bluebells. I've got a cock pheasant there trying to escape from me. It's been running along the hedge. The female's already long since gone. Got around a corner on this lane. There's obviously a notice about keeping dogs under control, and a nice little bridge there. And we've got to make our way up this lane for possibly another few hundred metres. There is actually a local wildlife reserve that was donated to the people and that purpose, but it really has, when I say gone back to nature, I'll possibly go so far as to say it's been allowed really to go beyond what is possibly what it was intended for. But you know, I'm sure there's a lot of wildlife that call that home. And this is where we're heading, into this field and up to those oak trees. If you look at the ground I'm walking on, you can obviously see the path, but you can see how over years it's actually cut into the gradient to form the path. So people have been walking this with their horses and any other draft animal for a long time. Completely hollowed out in there. See right the way through to the other end. I've got a feeling, I'm just guessing, that this could actually be a very old ash tree, and that's just me looking at the way some of the leaves are beginning to come out. I could be wrong, but you know, I'm not the best at IDing trees, but I do think this is an ash tree. Very early on the leaves, but it's all indications to me ash. But this has seen many person walk this track, I would say. But anyway, we're heading down here. Crossing this in the winter can be a bit of a case of you've got to jump, hop and skip, and you know, hopefully you land on your footing to get across. It's never majorly running, but there's enough water that you can't just step across. But as you can see, it's cut a fair channel down through this field. And you can't miss ID this one. This is a very old oak. Yet again, it's got limbs scattered around it. Obviously, this has seen a lot of weather and a lot of years, but you know, even my limited ability, I can definitely see that is oak. And we're on a footpath that doesn't see very heavy walking, due to the fact it's basically in the middle of nowhere. And you have to be prepared to negotiate tree, deadfall branches, boulders and the likes of all things, shall we say, nature. And yet again, you can see public footpath there. And we're walking beside that stream. But we're heading up through here, and it will be on this path here. As I said just a minute ago, you can clearly see the years worth of use these footpaths and tracks have had. That has a gentle waterfall in the winter, but as we've had not too much rain, you can see it's just a very small trickle coming underneath those main boulders that throw the water out in white water columns when it's winter. And here's the path leading up to the first farm that we have to negotiate from the mill that we just passed, or the buildings that would have been the mill that we just passed on the lanes. But we do have some rocky outcrops there with some trees in front of it. I'm not sure if they would have been, or that is leftovers of quarrying for buildings. Possibly, but it's nice to see a little bit of an outcrop of rocks there. This path, like I said, sees very little maintenance, and it sees very little in the way of walkers. But it serves as still serves for the farmer as a cattle track to get up to the farm. So, you know, it's nice to be on a footpath that sees very little footfall from the general public. Not meaning that in a mean spirit kind of way. It's just nice that some of these footpaths still feel lost in time. And just look at that tree there. Totally gorgeous. And that is a really big trunk. It is uphill, so I will be put a bit of exertion to do this. And there's a lot of wind now. We're beginning to get on top of the hill. But you can see this track now becomes almost like a tunnel. And looking up through, you are totally encased in, shall we say, holly, blackthorn, hawthorn, hazel mostly, smattering of oak and ash, forming a tunnel for you to walk up. Footpaths like this back in the day would have carried all the commerce for Cornwall many hundreds of years ago. And indeed this one here possibly wouldn't have just served a mill. It would have gone out into further little roads and that, and made its way over the moors to the Scard, further over to Looe and the ports on the south coast to, shall we say, allow further onward travel of goods and commerce. But yeah, these were basically the commercial highways to Cornwall many years ago. And there's many stories of them being quite treacherous underfoot for the draft animals, and indeed the, shall we say, drovers that used to walk on them. You know, a slip and a trip would result in a broken leg, and these here were nothing more than mud and stone tracks, and they still are. So looking back up through here, all the way up through here, just imagine yourself many hundreds of years ago. It would have probably been a little bit more open, because obviously horses, donkeys, oxen, whatever draft animal had to use this. But in a sense, this is pretty much what you would have been looking at. And basically this footpath follows, shall we say, the hill contours. And I'm probably halfway up that hill now, and the steepest part is behind me. But I now know I'm going into a farm, and the path will pass through it to another farm. So I possibly won't film in the farmyards for people's privacy, but I'll pick up again when we get to the in-between bit of the track. I've now made it to the top of this particular bit of track, and I can, well, basically I can slide through that gap there, and I'll take a right in through the farmyard and join the footpath on the other side of the farm. So I've just passed through the first farm and now I've joined the footpath again, and I will be heading up this track. So yeah, we'll push on through. This track has less of a gradient, and that is indicated by the fact the fields I'm looking at do actually rise there, and you can't see it to my left, but they rise slightly. So we're in a little bit of a saddle, and I'm having to negotiate under branches and things now. But like I said, this path does not get used very much. And I've just spoken to a lady who's cleaning her horses with her two daughters, and she confirmed they very rarely see anybody walk this footpath. There is a sty, but as you can see, the post the gate would have been attached to here has seen better days, and I don't suppose there's been a gateway, or if there has, by the looks of these, it's not served any purpose or been here for years. So yeah, like I say, it just goes to show you how little this actually does get used. But that means it retains that kind of little bit of mystery. I have seen in hot summer evenings foxes scampering along here and all manner of wildlife, and I do use it as a cutaway for myself if I want to cut a couple of my walks or hikes short, and it takes me, you know, that little bit closer to home. Doesn't that look just gorgeous? And it kind of just makes you think of freedom and just roaming. I mean, that just seems to go on forever and ever, and indeed it does go for quite a way. But that's why I love these old footpaths. Now I've just come up there and you can see it's getting extremely tight, but you can see that isn't public right of way. That's going into an agricultural field, but you can see it's well trampled, and you can see this path is opening up again, so you can reasonably be confident that this one's used a fair bit by the landowner and the farmer, you know, for the purposes of bringing cattle, or just even just coming down here to check his crops. But I would suspect they very rarely venture down there for those purposes on this path. You can see on the floor here there's a lot of stones that we're walking on, but that would have sat up along here, and these hedges would have been substantially higher and better maintained. You can see it almost looks just like an earth bank. A lot of these stones have basically fallen out of the hedge, and as you can see, they end up migrating with the weather conditions, mud and rain, making their way down the hill. But yeah, on the opposite side though, there is a post and wire fence system, so you know, the farmer isn't relying on this hedge to keep cattle or livestock out of this footpath. You can see evidence of obviously sweet corn here, so that's obviously animal feed or crops that have been transported here by wildlife to eat. But yeah, that's, you know, if you really look at the ground and start looking around, it's amazing what you can actually deduce and work out what's been happening here. I think a crow or rook has been taken here because there's a lot of feathers and they look like they've been plucked and stripped out. So I should imagine some corvid has met its end here. Well, I'm at the top of the track and I'm not going to film anymore because it's a farmyard and obviously people's privacy. The public footpath does go straight through here up to the road, but yet again, like I said, there's no point annoying anybody, and after all, this is the place they work and live, so, you know, let's afford them a little bit of privacy. I took a left when I got to the top of the lane once I left that farm, and now I'm heading on a small lane to a quiet village of Trebullet. Yet again, another milk stand almost lost to the hedge. It's pretty much, pretty soon it's going to be overtaken by the hedge. There is a bit of wind now, and it's starting to get that last drags of light. And we're making our way down through the main road into the actual village itself. And my wife, as far back as the, shall we say the 80s, said there was a real big sense of community here, and it was still a small, tight-knit group of people living a very rural existence and life. I'm going to round the corner. There is the actual Methodist church, and I'm going to take this road, and it will take us down to more lanes, and we'll descend back down into that wooded valley. This is the village green, and looking to the farm nestled at the very top of that hill in the cleft, I believe that has its own little place of worship, and it possibly was a manor for all this prevailing ground. I've just stopped at the gateway before I leave the village, and if you did watch any of my videos on Sharp Tour, I will just see if I can zoom in from here. From here we're about 7 miles away. So there's Sharp Tour in the distance. You can see it as that little pinnacle of granite sitting on top of that hill there. And like I said, it's about 7 miles as the crow flies from here. Well, what a little find here. This blossom here, and some still to come out. I do think I've actually found a hedgerow apple tree, and I don't think it's a crab apple. This could genuinely be an eater, so this may be something to come back to and investigate and get some apples. A very shy rabbit down there, just got his head sticking out the grass. There he goes. See his white tail? Yep, yep, yep. He's gone. Yep, yep, yep. Basically, we've took the footpath, broached that hill over there, come down into that first farm, across to the second, and made our way up onto the lanes and done a circular. And in effect, those houses over there is the village, and we're coming back down this lane, and we're making our way down to this lane here, which will now drop down into a very, very steep wooded valley. Out of interest, this hedgerow here produces some of the best sloes I've ever had, and it produces them by the bucket load. And you can just see now where that road stops, we have a major drop, and it's all downhill. This is a very steep hill. It's probably not even going to show as a major gradient on film, but I used to pride myself that I could actually run up this hill, and I used to do so in preparation for my annual fitness test, which I had to pass to gain my bounty each year. So yeah, this hill has a lot of memories for me, possibly good ones from what I could do, but I actually shudder at the thought of having to do anything like that now, if I had to do it. But no, this is, like you say, a very steep hill, and as you can see the wood line in the distance, and that's where we're heading down to now. So the footpath comes out, or we started, just up from that white house, and in ancient times people would have actually gone in through here into a very old mill. Now obviously it's no longer a mill, but it's just fascinating to know these things, you know, and bits of history, because it just makes these walks all that more interesting. and you realise you're walking in the footsteps of people before you. And you know, if you close your mind, you can actually just imagine it. So there you go, there's a little circular encompassing an ancient footpath going into, shall we say, a pleasant little rural village, and some pleasant lanes walking there, you know, and that is a pleasant way to end the day. And on that note, I'm going to basically sign out from here. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was just a little evening little stroll really. So yeah, all the best. This is Andy from Folklore Hiking Sticks.